Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg. Today I'm going to talk about something that I'm very excited about. It's really big news in the pen world,
This is CNN Breaking News.
which is the new Schon Dsgn Monoc Nib pen. I just got one. This is a very special pen in that not only did they design and make the pen body, but they did the nib itself. They designed the nib, fashioned the nib themselves, which is among small manufacturers and even large manufacturers of fountain pens quite unusual. So many of the pens on the market are made by people to make the body of the pen, but the nibs tend to be made by a few manufacturers, notably people like Bach and Jovo, and then there are some Chinese and Japanese companies like Pilot makes their own nibs, or Waterman, the really big companies, but it's very hard for a small manufacturer to come up with the money and the design teams and all the manufacturing that you would need to make a nib. The other thing about the Monarch nib is that it's all one piece. It's made out of titanium. Typically, that a nib is made out of kind of sheet metal, and it's different up, and then it has a tip that has to be welded to that, and that's a very elaborate process, and a process actually that can go wrong in many different places if things are slightly misaligned, and then it can go wrong when you actually use the nib. So they actually make it out of one piece of metal that is worked on in a way that doesn't require it to be bent and turned and done all these kinds of things that they do to nibs. Now, I'm not obviously not an engineer and probably getting it wrong exactly, but I strongly recommend, if you're interested in this pen, to go on their website, and they have a blog in which they describe the process and how the word monarch comes from a French word and from Michel, but obviously relates to the idea of mono, one, and why they chose this particular material. There are other titanium nibs out there. It's actually a way often to get a pen that has a kind of flex to it, that is a little more flexy than a steel pen maybe, but not as flex or as expensive as a gold nib. But in this case, it's for the strength. The nib doesn't flex so much, although the way it's designed, it does have some variation depending on how you hold the nib. For this particular run of the pen, you don't have a choice in what size nib you get with the pen. It to me it feels like a more like a broad pen, which I like a lot for drawing because it's really great for filling in areas. It's pretty wet, and I like thicker lines, particularly when I'm writing. As they say on their blog, it feels like no other pen. It when you write with it, it is I think it's really quite wonderful. It feels both smooth, but it has a kind of feel almost like graphite, I would say. I think they might say pencil, but if you're an artist and you sometimes use a big thick graphite marker, it has some of that feel, and it's kind of wonderful feel of feedback. So I like that a lot. It's expensive and I paid for it, so this is not a commercial for Schon Dsgn. It costs $400, and you can't get the nib separate, and for that you get a really beautiful but very simple black aluminum pen, which has a really beautiful feel to it, and as you can see, it has a kind of sleekness to it, an elegance, which I think is true of all their pens. They make these beautiful pens that they anodize to give them all these wonderful colors. If you want the nib on one of those, they'll give you, basically they charge you $300 for the nib, and then they give you $100 for whichever pen that they sell, pen body. And that, so that in a way is going to add another $100 to the cost of the pen. So when you get the pen in the mail, it comes in this box and then this nice little tube, which is really well designed, I think. And it's a little message from Ian Schon and some stickers. And then it comes in this little tube. Exciting. And here's the pen. Very minimalist design, very elegant. Since it's in this black, it's hard to show you this, but I will have some close-ups. But you can see that the name Schon Dsgn is on the cap. And it's not a huge pen, but it's not a small pen. Around 5 inches, I would say. You see that it's smaller than the Safari. Or about the size, a little smaller than Metropolitan. 3 black pens, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Schon Dsgn pen is the most elegant of these pens. Now I feel like this is really something that is such a wonderful thing that they're doing. It requires so much work on their part and design and risk that I really feel it's important to support them in this. And I'm really delighted also to sort of have the first edition of the pen. To mark the fact that it's the first edition, they put a little star on the nib itself, and you do get to choose whether you want the logo on the nib to be in one color, I think blue, or multicolored, or no color at all. But the little star on the pen sort of signals that you got the first edition. And every month they make a certain number of these nibs. I think they're still taking orders for April, but they've also said on their website that they would plan to sort of take a break. And I think they're going to be working on the nib and maybe modifying it with, in response to how people see it. I love the fact that when you go to a pen show, you can usually meet the people from Schon Dsgn and in fact meet Ian Schon. And in general, that's one of the wonderful things about the whole fountain pen journey is that so many of the people who work in the industry are very accessible, and particularly the smaller companies. You can, go to a pen show and talk to Jonathan Brooks or talk to the people who are making pens at Franklin Christoph or any of the different vintage pen people. They're right there, and they are really accessible and listening to the people, and there is a kind of wonderful symbiosis that is happening. And so I think that's why people are very excited about this and feel almost as if they too are involved in this. So to support what is being done by these different entrepreneurs, and it's a great pleasure. And so too is this interest, at least with me, both in old pens and new pens and pens in between, and inexpensive pens and expensive pens. It's all part of the mix, and I like the fact, or I hope, that there isn't too much sort of judging about, oh, well, this person likes old pens, or this person is only using Jovo nibs, or et cetera, et cetera. It's really different passions that people have. Anyway, this is, I think, really, I feel privileged to sort of be here with the first edition of the pen and get a chance to use it and see how it works. And I think, some people feel this way, that there are certain pens that they are like musical instruments, and you have to sort of work with them and see what they can do, and allow them maybe even to change the way you work. I think that's what's happening with this pen, and I look forward to using it as an artist and seeing how it's going to change my drawings and what it's going to do. Other pens, I mean, when they're very, very expensive from larger manufacturers like Pilot, I expect the pen to work in a very slick and direct way, and I don't want to do a lot of tinkering with it. I think that's not the case with a pen here that is really basically handmade and like a musical instrument. And there is something really delightful about using something like this, and really feeling like you're among the first people to experience it. And maybe it'll happen that they'll go on and make something else. It'll be very different, and these will be the only pens like this, or there'll be a whole other generation that will have other characteristics. And that is very much like a violin maker or a musical instrument maker, and that's very different from what it's like, to make something mass manufactured, which also to so kudos to Schon Dsgn for doing all this work and for their creativity. I'm really interested to see what people end up doing with this pen. Right now, I don't feel confident to take the pen apart and put the nib in other pens, but I'm sure that some of my friends and some other people in the community will start doing that. And so I'm sort of excited to see what will happen with that, and also interested to see how the company itself evolves this project, and hope that it's success, and hope that other pen makers imitate them and do their own versions of nib designs. So it's really a terrific thing. Okay, here I'm actually writing with the pen. As I say, it's pretty smooth, but it has feedback that is something like a pencil or a piece of graphite. It doesn't have much flex, but if you sort of twist the pen around, you get some different line variation and a different feel to the way it comes down, and it's a very good reverse writer. It's quite wet, and the ink flows very, very well. This is my usual Waterman Intense Black ink. Good at writing fast and nice and wet, which is the way I like it. So it's quite good. Here I am doing my typical drawing of Severus, my cat, named after Severus Snape from Harry Potter. As always, please, if you are interested in what I'm doing here, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. It's free. Let me know what you think. If you can afford it, support what Schon Dsgn is doing if you can, or at least if you see them at a pen show, say hi and give them encouragement. And I'll see you in another one of these pen videos. Bye.